because I was so depleted to begin with at that point. Don't jump in. They're not going to be able to rip the Band-Aid off and make it sustainable.
Hello and welcome back to Real Life Carnivore. I'm Rochelle, the Real Life Carnivore, and today I have a super special guest. Her name is Lena. She is a meat-based mother of 8, and she is also a birth doula, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with her. We're going to be touching on things like how to talk to your children about nutrition and what it's like being a birth doula, how that can empower you, and what decisions you can make moving forward. And I'm just really excited to welcome her on here. So Lena, please, I'm so excited to have you here. Please introduce yourself.
Thank
You're
you so
so
much.
cute.
I'm happy to be here. Had an early morning, but definitely feel compelled to share, stepping out of my comfort zone, but just knowing that how I've been inspired and I want to inspire others. I am a mother of 8. I've had several losses in the midst of that, and just really have found that the pain and crosses have propelled me to just focus in and do what I can for my own well-being, to thrive so I can serve my family best in whatever capacity I can, and hopefully for the long haul. I'm also soon to be grandmother. My eldest is about to have 2 children.
Oh my goodness,
So
congratulations.
it's exciting. We're so excited. But you know, even before that, just knowing that I have all these children, I need to be well for them. And I wasn't for various reasons. I wasn't. So here I am, inspired by others and just willing and open to offering my own stories in hopes that maybe I can inspire someone else.
I love that. And I'm so excited to hear more about your story. So let's talk about the meat-based aspect of it. What encouraged you to go meat-based? What is your definition of meat-based, and how do you approach that?
So for me, it's been a series of events. I'm always reading, always praying, because I have got nowhere with mainstream medicine, as many of us are well aware of. So I was never, I removed myself from that picture. Of course, I understand the need, and I do, you know, all those things. I don't have a problem using it when it needs to be used. However, I'm not going to take medicine after medicine after medicine to try to be well. For me, it goes down to, okay, I don't have the means for this, I don't have the means for that, but what can I control? And it was always nutrition, nutrition, nutrition. So at some point, I was always trying to pull back these layers. And I have a series that led to this 13-year, maybe even a little over 13 years ago at this point. We did a major overhaul. And when I say we, it was myself who needed it. But my husband said, no, we're all going to do it. We're all going to do it just because it's going to be difficult for you. And it was. So we went paleo-ish lifestyle. We followed a paleo diet, removed everything out of the pantry, did gaps, had healing. I mean, there's a lot of nuances, right? But for the most part, I'm giving you the broad scope. Had healing until there wasn't. And then knowing, okay, there's something else more. And that kept going, and that process kept going. In 2000, and granted, on the paleo lifestyle, you're still eating natural sugars. You're still maybe even doing some agave, which was like, is that okay? Is that not okay? Okay, I'll try it. Well, immediately I know, no, my body doesn't respond. Very in tune with my body. That's a gift. But again, it goes towards how I was brought up and what I was into. I was also an elite athlete in my younger days. No, intuitively trying, not working, but still not feeling this solidified wellness. So in 22, again, another major overhaul, and all sugars were removed, all flours. And I'm talking honey, I'm talking whatever, I'm talking coconut flour, I'm talking every single flour, whatever is even considered healthy flour, removed. For me, I knew even grains were removed, so I even did grains. I moderated when I would eat, how much I would eat. That was partly for another issue, tremendous healing. Okay, then starting to plateau, and the healing's like, okay, I'm thinking something else. Removed the fruits. Kept removing to the point where I was pretty much up till maybe a year and a half ago eating, I didn't coin it as this because I don't even know if I knew that this was a thing, keto carnivore, where it was primarily protein based with an occasional veggies, but I was not eating fruits. I was not well when I had these things, and for various reasons. And then I was pregnant in this January. And I knew, like, I need to do my part to make this the healthiest pregnancy I could have. And I need to just take a step further and quit playing back and forth with some veggies, no veggies. And I'm just going to work on trying to reduce my inflammation as much as I can. And within that minute, like I saw that test, I had these graces, because we know it's not easy, right? Like cold turkey, like solely Lion diet. That was it. And so I've been Lion diet for, we're going on 90 days at the end of this month.
Oh my gosh, 90 days Lion. Okay, this is very inspiring for me.
Yeah.
How do you approach nutrition now? Like, how do you talk to your family about it? Is your whole family Lion? Is everyone kind of on their own journey with it?
So when I did the start at the Lion, and I will say this, let me just share this, that I did miscarry. And of course, it's always, you know, we prayed for the graces to accept whatever God willed, and it's clearly God's will. But I'm at peace knowing a few things, that I did what I could, you know. It wasn't a matter of my health wasn't this, or, you know, I should have, like, no, I dialed things in, did what I could. And there we go. And I'm also extremely thankful, because without having had that, I don't know if I could have went Lion and experienced this level of healing that I've experienced.
Wow.
So there's so much Thanksgiving in that, which was given and which was taken away. I'm so thankful. It really was a gift. That baby, my son's here because it's our baby, right? It's his sibling still. And so we have many who we pray for. But yeah, so when I speak to my family, my temperament is as such that I could be a clinging cymbal. So I've had to learn things over the years to soften, right? And I was probably hesitant to share it with many. Of course, my intimate family I'm referring to, you know, my husband was on board. He even said, no, I'll do it. We were entering the Lenten season for us. We observe a traditional Lenten season, which is no meat.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I didn't know that.
A real vegan diet. There's no way I could follow that, because I will be sick, right? And so I struggled with, well, this is what we do, but yet and of course there's dispensations for health. And so I was in that category. My husband is dealing with another issue, and I just knew this would be helpful. And he said, no, I'll do it with you. Our children did not at that time. I had his support in that way, and always have his support, because he knows what I'm struggling with. In terms of like the extended family, I hesitate to always share. In terms of with friends, I don't share unless they ask, because and they typically do ask. They typically do ask. And I tell them, this is what I'm doing, this is what is working for me, and this is how I got here. And I think more than anything, how we're living is the real testament to it. You know, I have so many people, I don't even need to like project it. They're just like, Lena, what are you doing? You look well. And I'm like, well, I've lost a lot of weight. But it's over time. It's not solely been carnivore lifestyle. But they said, no, it's not the weight. Like, you look vibrant. Wow. My mother even the other day said, Lena, you look like you did in college when you were playing soccer. And I'm like, I'm nowhere near that weight. I'm not even near that weight. That was elite days, like semi-professionally, all these things. And I'm like, no, I'm not in that physique. But to her eyes, the body composition, the change, and even I looked at my daughter like, no, Mom. She's like, Mom, you look strong. You look strong. So either I was really bad before or it's just been a drastic change in that 90 days, right? I felt it within the first week.
Really? In the first week?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I did. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. This is more and more kind of like setting off a little beacon for me, like Lion might be your option right now. So I do primarily beef, butter, and eggs. I do a little bit of bacon once in a while, and I'll do chicken, but I rarely eat chicken. It's just not my favorite. And I love lamb. So those are kind of my meats that I usually stick to. And I just wanted to just touch on something, because you know, my heart aches for women who lose babies. I know what that feels like. I've lost two myself, as we were talking about prior to our recording. And I have my precious little blessing from the Lord here on my lap. He's just hanging out. And I mean, it's just the best gift. And I just want to, just from the bottom of my heart, just empathize with you. Like, it can be so painful. And I'm just curious, as a birth doula, how do you use your experiences to help other moms through what they're going through? Like, if they do arrive at, at the birth of their child, or if they, if the pregnancy terminates, like, where do you come in here?
I am also a bereavement doula, so I also do that. The tricky part is many women don't understand the necessity of having that bereavement doula at that time until they're struggling emotionally down the road, and you just can't interject, right? Because it's a real sacred space. So oftentimes I'm just left to a lot of prayer and gently, sharing as they're open to it. But there are real, especially for those who have the stillborn, there are real things that ought to be done that a woman and even a husband who's experienced that don't realize. But then in the aftermath, they can go back and say, that is what is allowing me to heal because I processed it in this way. And it maybe seems so. I'm talking like as simple as taking pictures even for a stillborn. And you think, oh, that's kind of morbid. That's your baby.
It
Like,
is. It is your baby.
It needs to be celebrated. You need to have a physical, I mean, it's an emotional thing. In terms of miscarriage, there are various ways that many people don't know, what do I expect? And it's a lot about, well, what to expect, that they just want to be walked through. It looks different for each woman. And I'll just give for myself, I've had 7. And you think like, okay, you're here at the 7th, like you're good. And I thought I was good. And I thought everything was processed. And then not that far off, something occurred and I was very emotional, almost irritable, almost all these things. And I just didn't know where this was coming from. And I had to be reminded by the outside, like hormonally, like your body is still processing it, even though physically it has been done and you feel emotionally stable, like you felt that, right? But then now the hormones are still fluctuating, trying to find their place.
Yes.
That's a challenge. And to encourage and to help women, and especially in that season, nutrition is key.
Yes,
Nutrition is
100%.
so key. Like I know, because I've been there in various seasons, feel so much worse, have such a harder time when I wasn't eating as I ought to have been eating, either because I didn't know or either because it was just convenient, whatever the reason. So I'm so thankful for having this dialed in and to this extent, because I had it dialed in. Dialed it in a little more, but now I feel like I'm hitting all the things that my body has needed and removed the things that I'm fine with until I'm not fine with. And then it's flare up, and then it's major fallout, and then it's okay, starting from square one again. Let's see.
Makes perfect sense to me. Could I ask you, Lena, when you have had your previous pregnancies, have any of them been strictly meat-based, or like, do you have like kind of a variety of history with your pregnancies? Did one feel better than the other?
No, I have not been meat-based. And the interesting part to it, every time I was pregnant, I would even have an aversion to meat. Like I cannot even smell it, do not even cook it in the house, at least for the first trimester. So I found that to be really, really interesting. I don't know, and I can't say what that was because I wasn't eating a heavy meat-based diet, but I also, for the most part, was eating clean, just probably too many fruits, too much of that. And I was eating earlier parts, bread, carbs, those things. Towards the later pregnancies, those were removed. I would say the closest births to the animal-based would be the paleo-ish one, the GAT, where it was still heavy meat-based, but still other things incorporated, whole foods. Those would have been approximately, I'm trying to think, I'm looking at one of mine, maybe 3 of my pregnancies. I wouldn't say, it's hard to know, like, I wouldn't say they were easier because I was so depleted to begin with at that point for other various reasons. So I was looking forward to having a meat-based pregnancy because already I had so much energy going into it in a way that I never had in a very long time. So I was looking forward. I was nervous like, oh goodness, what if I have this meat aversion? What am I going to do? Because then I won't be able to eat
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I was nervous, but no, I haven't had any that were solely.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is really interesting to note too. And I wanted to ask you, can you tell me, you mentioned that there were some initial benefits in that first week of going lion. Can you talk to me about what you experienced for benefits going lion?
Some of the things, first off, were I could breathe. Uh, it sounds so basic, but I have such severe inflammation almost systematically that sinuses and all that throat are always tight. You know, I would have to do a lot of clicking just to like help drain. I don't know if anyone knows, but like I would do this thing like, I don't know if you can hear it, where it like helps to
Yeah.
relieve pressure to, you know, I would always have to massage, like this is always tight. And I'm thinking like, oh, you know, after like a couple days, like, wait a minute, I could swallow and not feel like I'm going to drown or like I can't breathe. I could actually breathe out of my, right now I have a little cold for being out at the swimming pool and all the things flying, but like I usually don't even sound like this, but actually I have a friend who says, Lena, it sounds like you're underwater. Like she could hear like just that, because she has a child who also has some allergies. But I said, that's my normal. That's how I feel. I feel like I'm underwater sometimes. That was relieved. So that was major. I felt mood stabilization, which I hadn't felt, you know, in a while. You know, where there's not this big emotional roller coaster. There's more stability. Energy wise too, I would say that was the case. There were some other things that I was like, maybe that's happening. Like I realized I wasn't having this eye sensitivity that I had had for years that no doctor can tell me what's going on with, to light. Like right now I could have my blinds open and there's light. I could never have that. I'd have to be in a dark room. I have lights facing me. I could never have that.
Really?
To even go outside, I'd have to like prepare myself. And you know, and then usually when I would come back inside, there'd be a headache or I had to take some time. Yeah, so there were some things like that. There were others. I really wish I would have taken better note. If I asked my husband, he'd be blah 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 blah, because he noticed the difference too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I noticed the difference in him within a week as well. His vitality, he came home more energized, less stressed. And he said, he goes, I feel more clarity. And he's like, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel really, and I said, I know exactly what you mean, because I'm also experiencing that. Like, just this clarity. I have tremendous brain fog. I don't believe I'm healed from it, but that was lifted significantly
Wow.
for me.
Wow.
Significantly for me. I don't share this part, and I with a lot of people in here, I'm going to share it with you, but prayerfully I believe it ought to be shared because I don't think I'm the only one. I had signs of early Alzheimer's, and it would always be written off by friends, by doctors, and I know what it is, and I know what's happening.
Mhm.
And so that is a big major part of my why. And I'm just so, like I said, I may never be able to get back to where I had ought to be, but at least I could hold it and feel like a person, and I can go out. I would go out to public things or even to church, and I'm just standing there and I'm not talking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, people probably think like I'm rude or I'm, you know, this or this or that. The reality is I can't gather thoughts, and I can look at someone and say, I know you, and I know that you've introduced yourself to me, and I can't remember your name.
Wow. Okay. I,
And
I want to just ask Lena, how young are you?
okay, I'm 46.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And when did you first start experiencing those types of symptoms?
Um, if I really look back, I was probably that one is 16, maybe between 14 to 15 years ago.
Wow.
It
Okay.
was being written off like you're not getting sleep, you're not getting all these things. And okay, I could attest to that. Busy mom, all those things. Let me work on those. Let me work on those. And
Right.
perhaps those were what initiated it, you know, to just like go off. But of course we also know the inflammation, the sugar, the diet, all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those were things. The one real big moment that it's ingrained into my head, my eldest daughter was sitting at the stove. I mean, I will cry probably saying this, so I apologize.
Okay. No need to
Blame
be
it on the
sorry.
mom, hormones. Um, and my eldest daughter was sitting at the stove and I was helping and we were discussing something. And I can't remember what we were discussing per se, but I know it was basic. And I was saying, and she's looking at me and I'm like, and nothing was coming out. And she like, sweet girl, but kind of like, Mom, are you playing dumb? Like kind of like being like, what are you doing? This isn't funny. And nothing came out. She said, and it was
Oh my,
Mom, bleh, and she said the word. And like, it was so basic and I couldn't even say it, but it was it was just hard. It's even hard to think. So words are even leaving me at this time. Like I can't even speak full coherent, my husband would look like at other times like, and then
so
I just break down because it's emotional,
oh, yeah, well, and it's
um,
frustrating because you
oh,
don't understand what's
absolutely.
happening and you know what you want to say, but you can't get the words out, and there's like a disconnect between our brain and our mouth.
And it was happening more regularly in simple situations. Like I expect it maybe when I went out and there could have been other things. Now I'm also maybe building an anxiety about this. It could have been played off as so many things, but no, now we're in a familial, comfortable situation and they're happening on a regular basis.
Wow.
So finally a friend who's a doctor said, no, I believe it. And she didn't at the time believe though the connection between nutrition. She has since radically changed in many of those
Mhm.
ways. But yeah.
Yeah, I and just at first glance meeting you, A, I would not have guessed 46. I would have guessed 36, which is my age. B, I would never have guessed that you have any of these underlying issues going on because like you just are so gorgeous and so radiant and so vibrant. And it just kind of goes to show, that you can't always base things off of the outward appearance because obviously people are always going through something on the inside, and how we package ourselves outside can be very different than how we feel inside. And I'm curious, Lena, have you heard that any of those issues with the brain, like dementia, Alzheimer's, that those are considered a type 3 diabetes? Have you heard that?
Yes. About the two, no, it was probably more like 2020. I won't be able to recall his name offhand. There's a doctor who's basically coined Alzheimer's doctor, and I really was diving deep into what he was offering. And of course, open to even going further and getting his services. And then you look and I'm like, yep, that's out of my means. I can't even afford that. But I'm reading his book and I forget the name of the book right now as we're talking about Alzheimer's. I forget the name of the book. But maybe I could look it up and get back to you on that. And it just listed some things. I'm like, but I could do this, I can work on this, and I can do this. And that's where I started. So absolutely. I probably also, again, being in tune with how my body reacts to food and how sensitive I am to foods. I knew it. I knew it. I knew that these are not making me well, and it's systematic and it's affecting everything. And that's always been my baseline. This is what I can do.
That
This
makes
is what I
perfect
can do.
sense. Yeah. And I love that you have that sense of empowerment to claim this is what I can do. I can be in prayer and I can control my nutrition, and the rest is God's will
Yeah.
at this point. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful.
And it's none of my own doing. I've gotten here, like I said, since infancy. I've had problems. I dare say this. I don't know. You may need to cut it out. I believe I was vaccine injured as an infant, and I was a fine baby. My mother took me home. I was fine until I wasn't around a few months old, and anaphylactic. Everything's shutting down. She sees me swelling up and rushes me to the emergency room. I go into isolation. I call it a bubble. I was put in a bubble. All the stories she tells and the pictures she shows, I was put in a bubble and they couldn't figure it out. My skin was peeling. Anything that got on me was like acid. I couldn't eat anything at the time.
Oh
Nursing was
my
not
God.
even. So I've been dealing with some of these things, and I continue to deal with them my whole life. I've had to take medicine after medicine at the age of, I'll just say 10 average. I'm like, was it 9? Was it 10? I remember distinctly being in class and I was on these medicines for all the things I was dealing with, asthma, allergies, and all the other things. And I wanted to crawl out of my skin. And I was just feeling, all these intense things. And I said, I'm done. And at some point, of course, I told my parents I'm not taking anymore. And looking back, I'm so thankful they honored my autonomy and allowed me to make that decision, because and to this day, I won't take medicine for mostly anything. I will do other things. And first, I'll take medicine in an absolute need, of course. But it's not what I go to. It's not my first thing.
Okay, I love that you touched on this
Second, or maybe third.
yeah, I love that you touched on this because I do think that there is some viability to that. I mean, I experienced something similar. It took a lot longer for my allergies to show up, my anaphylactic allergies to show up, but I think a lot of the issues that I had as a young adult, prepubescent and into adolescence, I think a lot of that can be attributed to injuries from such. And I don't want to pry about that type of, your perspective about that, but like, I get the sense that you're on the same page with me about those types of things. Like they're just not something that are necessary. And as for medicines, like when it comes to medicines, I agree with you. I think for the sake of a doctor, I think if I have a broken bone, that's what I want to go to them for. But when it comes to nutrition, I don't want to go. I mean, they're not gonna advise me on anything that I haven't already found on YouTube University or, the Google College or whatever. Like your experiences help me to learn and to better integrate practices into my life. Just like other people who are going Lion or ketovore or carnivore, their experiences and what they're healing from and what they're overcoming from. I'm like, this nutritional section has been so glossed over in the medical industry because it doesn't make money. And how sad is that we're just looked at as a dollar sign. So if I'm a cancer patient like my mom was, she was a multi-million-dollar case, whereas I'm like, a couple $100 a year. Like when I got pregnant, I did not do a single ultrasound. I did 2 blood tests at the beginning because I had to, because of my history of miscarriage. I had to check my progesterone levels. But other than that, just my midwife just checked my vital signs every time I would see her, and I would see her once a month and then every 2 weeks and then weekly leading up to the birth. And my baby is perfectly healthy. Like when I thought about giving birth and I thought about having a child, I thought about how did they do this 100 years ago? How did they care for women 100 years ago when they got pregnant? And I think of people like you, birthing doulas. I think of midwives. I think of, like in-home nurses and things like that. Like though, and family. That's who I think of when I think of caring for your family and giving birth and having healthy children. I'm not sure if that speaks to you the way it speaks to me, but it just fills my heart so full to know that there are women like you who are advocating not just for people you work with, but for yourself. And I think that is so encouraging and so inspiring. And I imagine that translates for your children as well. I love that your parents honored your autonomy, like you said, and allowed you to make that freedom of choice and say, no, like this is just not working for me and I don't feel my best this way. And it sounds like that's something that you translate and offer to your children as well. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think so, to the point where the one sitting here with me actually is the one who is more inclined to go carnivore. The reality is would I call my children carnivore? No. They may be more in line with like a keto carnivore 80-20. They do eat stuff that I'm just like, oh Lord, please let me not see this. Like, it's in that,
Yeah.
but that's on occasion. That's not the norm, even though sometimes it feels like in different seasons, it feels like it's the norm. But then I have to remember it's this season, for whatever reason it came in. And the big ones have probably been, I don't want to say indoctrinated, but have probably heard more of the science, and in a way that my younger ones have not. Because when I first, and now they know, and then I forget, well, I haven't really taught the other one, but this particular child, he says, Mom, I want to know about that. Like, can I learn the science? So that's what we've been doing a lot. When I talk to the children about nutrition, we talk about options, we talk about all those things. Most of them have had healing. They know, like, I don't feel well with that food. And for the most part, if you have a fallout, I'm not there. Like, you got to deal with it because you knew. And now this, like,
Right.
sorry, there's nothing
Taking
I can do.
responsibility. Yeah.
You have to. And some of I know this now. Like I said, in my early days, not so much. I'm like, do this, and this is why, and just stay away. It's gonna make you sick. But most of my children needed to learn the hard way. Like, oh, but they also needed help though connecting. And I think it's help them further now to understand truly what is taking place or why that's happening. And he's like, Mom, I'm having this fruit. I'm so, well, that's fine. You may have that fruit if you know, but knowing like to what amount, and maybe like that big apple is not truly a serving size. That's like beyond what an actual size
Right.
of a fruit ought to
Right.
be, and just be aware of these things and not it be a daily thing. So I'm trying to almost start over with the younger ones to just give them the real information. So we make it a part of our curriculum, actually, the best I can. Like, I'm like, science, it's focused on these parts. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
genius. I plan to homeschool, so I may want to pick your
Yeah.
brain about what curriculums you recommend and that sort of thing, but we can have that conversation.
Okay. Okay.
Oh my gosh, my heart
That's
is just
so important.
exploding right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so good. Lena, I would love to ask, what would be your top tips for someone who's considering either lion diet or carnivore or ketovore or just meat-based or animal-based in general? What would be your top tips for them?
I struggle with, I hear take it slow. I hear, you know, don't jump in a lot. I'm of the mindset, rip the Band-Aid off, do the hard, because the reality is you're going to have hard either way. You know, maybe it is you focus, you just choose your hard. And I feel like choose this and then maybe backtrack and then loosen up if you need to loosen up, but you're never going to truly know. And this is having, I guess this isn't for everyone because, but from my experience, this is what I'm saying, because this is having not experienced this level of healing as I played around with some fruits, as I played around with some veggies, but solely meat based. You know, the dairy I knew did not have a place with me. I knew that early on. So that was something that has been removed for years. However, I do love cheese. So cheese
Mm-hmm.
was something that always would come in still. But when I still play this game of going in with, you know, gentle approach, it doesn't serve me. I don't, ultimately I'm led here anyways, having ripped this Band-Aid off eventually here. I experienced an amount of healing to give me peace now to say I'm going to try this or try that versus dancing around it. I also, coming from a place of I don't want to be presumptuous that I have the time to do it slowly or gradually, you know. But having said that, I realize that it takes a tremendous amount of, I don't want to say discipline, but you really have to have a why. You really have to. So I would even encourage you to write a why, and everyone will say like not just a simple one. I didn't understand this, and I thought this was silly until I really have been on this part and I've done that work that's outside of food. But a why that makes you cry, you know,
Yes,
a why
yes.
that just hits your core, and it is so significant that anytime you deviate, you feel it. Be gentle with yourself, because having said that, having said rip the Band-Aid off, like there are still occasions, even now, I do not, that's the other thing, I don't have cravings. What? Like I don't have cravings? No. But where I sit in this season of almost 90 days, I found myself wanting to grab other foods, but I wasn't craving it. And it's like, well, what is that? It's a behavioral thing. Like I still need
Yes.
to work on, if I'm stressed, how do I respond? You know, I don't want that food. And even if I put it into my mouth, I'm like, oh, that wasn't even good. It's not how I remembered it. It didn't even light me up. Those are all wins. That only happened when I did lion, when I
Really?
completely removed everything, you know? Like I said, so I've even ripped the Band-Aid off, but still extend yourself grace and know that it's not going to look perfectly each time. And you just keep trying to do better. Stay in the game. Don't throw in the towel, because that's what we often do, right? Like, oh, I'm off. I'll try again next month or next week or what have you. But no, show up later that day. Just make it feel like it's over there this meal or tomorrow if it's already late in the day. And you will see, because even I was looking at, I am analytical. That's my temperament. I keep record of it all. I like data. It helps me to know what's really happening, and I'm just not basing it
Mm-hmm.
off of how I feel or how I, you know, think I feel. And so I'm looking at this and I'm seeing so many dips and so many things. And I realize I would not be here at this place of this healing if I just gave up here, because I wasn't doing it perfectly, or I wasn't doing it how I thought it should be done, or it wasn't easy or any of those
Right.
things, I would not have experienced this healing. So just stick with it. I mean, the small things will help. So if you do need to start small, start small. I have my mother now and my father who have health issues to various degrees. And Lena, tell me more about it. Lena, so I believe they're on the verge of wanting to go this way, and they will have to start slow. They're not going to be able to rip the Band-Aid off and make it sustainable. So I'm not going to say don't start then, but if you can, rip the Band-Aid off. If you can't, do what you can when you can. That seems to be just really what's on my heart, is do what you can when you can.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's the perfect note to close on. So, Miss Lena, where can people find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about your services? How can they get in touch with you?
So the tricky part with my doula services is that I do it on a ministry base. Like you said, I am a homeschooling mom of many. I only have 5 children left in school age. The rest have graduated out. One's out of the home, married, you know. But so I'm happy to provide different things in terms of online and consults that way. Joy-filled wellness on Instagram is pretty much the best way. I used to have an up and running website, but I've just stripped that away just to help me focus more on my duties in the home. So joy-filled wellness on Instagram.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to thank you with my whole heart for your time, for sharing your wisdom, for having this conversation with me. And I really look forward to airing this episode and just getting more eyes on different ways that people can approach, health and wellness and nutrition with their families and with themselves. So thank you so much. I just appreciate you so much, Lena.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you for the prompting for me to step outside of my own comfort zone and just to share. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of Real Life Carnivore. I hope you've enjoyed my special guest. I will link all of her social media below where you can connect with Lena if you are interested in reaching out to her, whether it be to chat with her about homeschool or carnivore or being a birth doula or a bereavement doula. She is amazing and I just love her so much. And I'm just so grateful that I could share her with you guys in this community. I hope you guys are enjoying this Carnivore Motherhood series. It has been a pleasure recording these for you guys and sharing them out. I really hope that you find some valuable insights and information into how to best parent your children and how to talk to them about nutrition and share with them about nutrition and helping them be their best and healthiest selves. If you haven't done so already, I encourage you to like and subscribe below. You can drop me a comment and just let me know where you're tuning in from. I would love to hear from you. If there's anything that I can do for you personally to help you and support you, I do offer one-on-one coaching support. So you can visit me at my website, reallifecarnivore.com, or you can drop me a message on Instagram titled support at Real Life Carnivore. This is Rochelle. Have a great rest of your day. I love you guys. Bye for now.